Would you say I have a reasonable understanding of how to execute these various sex acts properly?
Yes.
How awesome is that? What you're doing is disgusting. Listen, lady.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing all right today. Coming to you live from the road right now. And we're going to be talking about this Jake Paul sexual assault allegation situation. Smash the like button, correct, Randall? Smash the like button, as always. And I went through this, the video I'm referencing. So there was this TikTok star. I didn't actually realize she was a TikTok star until after I'd watched the whole video. And so she put out this video probably about 5 days ago now, before Jake Paul had his big fight over the weekend. And she put that video out claiming that he had sexually assaulted her. So I went through this video last night and had a look through it. Made some notes, and I'm going to go over these notes with you today to give you my honest assessment of these allegations, and giving you my honest assessment of these allegations as a guy who has had a couple of false sexual assault allegations himself. So I'm going to be pulling on my experience in this context. And ultimately, the point of this is to help you guys to mitigate this kind of thing from happening in your life. Now, you're not a celebrity like Jake Paul, so the chances of a Me Too event happening to you is significantly diminished. Let's be honest. If you have nothing to lose, you have no money to take. No reputation to tarnish. They're not really likely to go after you, are they? But neither was I. So there's things to learn in this. From this example, from both Jake's example and my example. So I'm not going to play the video while I'm doing this because I think I'll get a copyright strike if I do, and then this will get taken down. Because that happened a lot last time I did something like that. YouTube gave me a copyright strike. So we might have to actually. Well, I didn't take the video down. I just didn't get any ad revenue for it. So we might play it. But let's bring that up. Actually, no, I don't even need to bring it up to talk about stuff. But basically, look, if you want to have a watch through the video I'm going to be referencing, it's in the description down below, so you can look at it at your leisure. It's about 20 minutes. It's a lot of heavy. It's edited quite significantly. Like, you can tell it's like chopped and cut up a lot as she sort of kind of get her thoughts together. So that's, I'm not trying to sound like a dickhead, but that's my first, I guess that is my first, my lingering doubts start creeping up when I see that amount of editing. And there's another context I need to add into this situation as well, which is the fact that I have dated a few different women in the past who were sexual assault victims when they were younger. So I am fully aware of how women tend to process these events and tend to describe them and talk about them, more importantly. And the way that they talk about their attackers. This is really important, and we'll get to this later on. That's the really important context, is how sexual assault survivors talk about their attackers. So, what do we got? Good morning to everyone in the chat. Gabriel, Viking Kingdom, Randall, Pedro, Rage Guy, good to see you all. As usual, Davina's in the house, I believe. I saw you there as well. Good to see you all. And as always, obviously, hit the like button while you're at it. So, let me go through my notes as I had written them down as I was looking for this video. So the first thing that comes to my attention, right, is that these events took place in 2019, like June, July 2019, so just under a year ago, right? And although it doesn't matter like how long ago a woman was sexually assaulted, right? If it happened, it happened, right? However, here's the big however. If it wasn't actually sexual assault, if it was what I'm going to say it is, and I'll get to that conclusion in a bit, the longer this woman has had to think about this, to replay this scenario in her head, the longer she has had to change the story, to change her interpretation of the events, to change what actually happened in her head, in her story. And that's part of why I was a bit suspicious with the amount of editing she did as well. I mean, someone might make the argument, oh, it's because she was crying and stuff during all the edits. Okay, maybe that was the case. Again, I'm just throwing out devil's advocate arguments here for the sake of it. So the first thing that I will say is that the longer she has had between it happening and her telling the story, especially because she, in her video, she uses phrases like, I've thought about this every day. Now, obviously, if it was legit sexual assault, she probably would have thought about it every day as well. Right? But again, I'm going to break it down. The vibes I'm picking up off of her, what I'm seeing in her story and in her video and stuff, the fact that she's been thinking about this all the time is basically her, like she's been, to cut to the chase, my conclusion is that she got jaded because she got basically nexted by Jake Paul. She got it was like a wham bam thank you ma'am situation. He didn't text her back, so she has had a year to backwards rationalize their interaction as being sexual assault. And she's probably had some girlfriends or some soy boy orbiters trickling that thought into her head over the last year as well. Every time she has emotionally, think about this situation, every time she has emotionally, dumped onto them like how much of an asshole Jake is because he didn't text her back, they've probably planted the seeds in her head that this was sexual assault. And I'm going to, as we go through, if you don't believe me as you go through, let me, kind of explain how I get to this conclusion after watching that video. So we keep going. One of the most interesting observations in her interaction with him was how socially awkward she's described him as. And she puts up examples of their text exchanges. And this is actually quite interesting. So he does this thing where like he invites her around. Oh, no. So she ends up going to Jake Paul's house because she goes to his house to meet another one of her friends who is there. And so she goes, and then through that third party, who's a dude, I believe, she meets Jake and then ends up hanging out with Jake. And she ends up hanging out with him a few times. She ends up going around to this place a few times. And her initial reaction, apparently, is how socially kind of awkward the guy is. Not really saying too much, saying hello, that's about it. And then like, he gets her number at some point and then starts texting her, but he texts her when she's in the same house as him. And in some circumstances, he texts her when she's even in the same room as him. And they're like across the room and stuff, and he's sitting there texting her. So that was a really interesting piece of information in this whole scenario. And here's why. because those of you who don't know who Jake Paul is, so Jake Paul is the younger brother of Logan Paul. Logan Paul was a big YouTube star. Jake is also a big YouTube star because of that. But Jake has now gone on to decided to do a career in boxing and stuff. And like, I can imagine that growing up as the younger brother of a YouTube star, or growing up as a social media influencer to a degree, could, like, growing up YouTube famous in the last 20 years, could have stunted like social skills to a degree. Because think about it, all your fame is coming from this thing, coming from the internet, and then you don't really need to develop super acute like verbal game that say the average player has to. You can rely heavily on pulling girls in through your social status, which I have no doubt he has. So this is interesting. I think that this is like his sort of social awkwardness is like a relic of him not really having like good, or not needing any decent verbal game to get girls. He just relies upon like his clout and his social status. So, and here's why this is important. Because she claims that she didn't really know who he was when she arrived. I find that hard to believe. If she's a TikTok star, a TikTok personality, she doesn't know who Jake Paul is. I'm a little bit like, yeah, I find that dubious. But, and I think that plays into the whole the narrative I'm going to lay out for you at the end as well. So she expects when a woman meets a guy who's high status like that, she expects him to have verbal game. She really does. Because in her head, like, he has high social status, he has high value, but if he's not this charming guy that she expects him to be in her head, there's some cognitive dissonance there. There's an incongruency there that screws around with women's heads. And this is actually the case with a lot of celebrities. They're not all like these super smooth talking guys, especially if the girl isn't hitting on them already. If the girl's hitting on them, if they're getting like the positive social feedback, then they go into like, I'm cool, fun, happy celebrity mode. But if the girl isn't giving them anything, they really haven't got the verbal game to do it, to play with it, like the average guy or a player might have to develop, right? So my thoughts here are that she's come into this place as a fucking mansion. She expects the guy to be high status. It's his house. So him being socially awkward is like the first kind of I was tricked trigger that goes off in her head. So she expects a guy like that to have some degree of game. In her subconscious, she feels like if she does anything like remotely sexual with him and he's awkward, she feels like she's been tricked. Yeah, Roller Tomasi talks about this, like kind of like she's being fooled into actually sleeping with a beta male. She's been fooled into thinking he's an alpha male, but she's actually slept with a beta male, right? So there's that. Then we keep going. This is the really important thing. Here we go, Viking, yeah. Growing up, my mum was a counselor for battered women, so I'm seeing the exact same red flags you are. Exactly, yeah, exactly. There's a few more coming up. We're going to get into this. And and yes, John, this is kind of where I'm going with this as well, because I've had this exact thing happen to me as well, and I'll go into my own experiences with this. Yeah, I think Al's basically gotten to my conclusion ahead of time. Anyway, where did I get to? So everyone's saying his face is very punchable. Well, okay, fine. Get in the ring with it then. So this is a really important point. So the way she condescendingly talks about his social awkwardness, and the fact that it's weird that he would be in the same room as her and text her, makes me think. That was my first suspicion. And then I picked up on this early on in the video, and then we got to the end of the video, And I was like, okay, I'm certain of this. It makes me think that she's trying to get back at him for hurting her. Not in a sexual assault context either, but in an ego context. Because sexual assault survivors, and like I said, I have dated a couple of girls who were sexually assaulted, sexually abused when they were younger. They aren't as calm and as conniving as this when they're talking about their survivors. The way she talks about him like she's condescending. She talks about him like she's better than him. She talks about him like almost like she has kind of like she has pity. In my experience, this is not how women talk about their abusers. They talk about them with fear. They're afraid of them because they assaulted them. And yes, they can be brave and they can stand up in court and give a testimony, absolutely. But generally, when they're talking about them, they have a degree of they're referring to them using afraid language. And so this is a real big red flag for me in this situation. So let's keep going. So apparently I think, I'm not sure how many interactions. I think she'd been around there a few times, right? And then at the point when she says the allegations happened, the assault happened rather, she's in the house with him. They're making out and stuff. They're kissing, and she says she's fine with the kissing and stuff. She's fine with making out with him. Cool. He grabs her hand, walks her to his bedroom. Now, she makes a big song and dance about like, oh, I've been with plenty of guys and we've gone to their friends and we've gone to their bedroom. Nothing's happened, blah, blah. I've kissed guys and it's just been kissing and I haven't had sex with them, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. But don't pretend like you didn't think this was leading to sex. If a guy takes you to if a guy grabs you is making out with you, grabs you by your hand and takes you to the bedroom, every woman under the sun knows where this is going. Like, even if he gives a plausible deniability, which is what you should be doing, by the way, gentlemen, she still subconsciously knows that this can lead to sex. She's aware of that fact. And she, and this girl in this context, is trying to kind of play off this character of like, oh, I'm so innocent. I didn't know this was going to lead to sex. I didn't, she's basically trying to get his attention and his time and his resources effectively without giving anything in exchange, without any sex or anything like that, right? Listen to the way she communicates this, and she talks about like, oh, I have plenty of friends that we just hang out with, and because this is the point I'm going to make right now. She references a section here where Jake says, so they're getting hot and heavy, they're in his room, he's trying to push things towards sex, and she says no. And then he says back to her, well, what's the point then? If we're not going to have sex, what's the point being here? Now, I don't know if she said this to him in the circumstances. She probably didn't, but she says this in the video. She's like, well, maybe I could just be your friend. People can be friends and not have sex, blah, blah. This is where I get to this conclusion. Well, she just wants his attention and his time and his energy and his resources. She wants access to him without actually having to give him anything in return. So then she says that this is the assault allegation, right? Then she says that he undid his pants and face fucked her. Now, there's a bit of a discrepancy, and maybe this could be, I could be reading into this too much. There's a bit of a discrepancy in terms of like where their bodies are when she's describing the story. Like, she says he undid his pants and then started face fucking her, and she explains that she's like laying flat on the bed and he's like on top of her, face fucking into her like that. Just the logistics of that, like if he's laying down with her, like undoing his pants and then getting up and face fucking her, seems a bit awkward. I don't know. Seems a bit rushed. Maybe that's how it happened. But before that, she didn't really explain that it was sort of like on the bed, laying down, canoodling and kissing. She made it sound like they were standing up, at least when I heard it. So they've sort of transitioned. There's been a transition here in this encounter, in in the way they're interacting with each other. It's gone from like making out to them laying down on a bed, and getting hot and heavy. So, yeah, he says, "What's the point?" She's like, "No." So basically, I mean, he's rightfully like, like kind of frustrated. He's like, "Fuck's sake, I want to bang this chick, and now she's just wasting my time." Here's the lesson you guys should take. If you're in that situation, just kick her out. And she even says this. She even says this in the video. She's like, "Oh, if he didn't want to have sex with me, he could have just kicked me out." I agree. He should have kicked her out of the fucking house, not just out of his room. She should have got kicked out of the party, because apparently this happened at like 3 a.m. So she should have just got kicked out of his entire fucking house. She doesn't want to. It should be comply or goodbye. This is the lesson you guys need to take from this in this situation. If you ever end up being a super high status guy like Jake Paul, is you have to be really, really firm with your boundaries. It should be comply or goodbye. It should be, look, either this is going down or you're out of the house. Not just if this is a party situation, not just out of my bedroom. You're out of the house. Like, go. I don't want you here. If you're going to waste my time, get out. That's what he should have done. Apparently, he didn't do that, and there might be reasons why. So we'll keep going. So what I think actually happened here, like it's very dangerous for a man to be putting his penis into the mouth of a woman who doesn't want it there. Like, if a girl's resistant and she doesn't want to, and I know this has happened, but it sounds like a very fucking dangerous idea to me. If you're going to sexually assault a woman, I wouldn't want to you wouldn't want to be putting your dick in someone's mouth where she can bite the goddamn thing off. But maybe that's just me. To me, it's what it sounds like as I'm going through this. It sounds to me. So here's the story she claims is they were making out. They got hot and heavy. He wanted to push things further. She said no. He got frustrated. Then he took his pants off and face fucked her, and then came in her mouth. And then she went, fixed up her hair, made fun of her old iPhone, which is actually a very important point in this whole story. And then they left the room. Now, and she stayed at the party as well, by the way. She stayed at the house that night as well. Here's what I think actually happened. She was making out with him. He wanted to have sex. She said no. He got frustrated, said, "What's the point then?" And so to keep him like around, to keep him engaged, she started to blow him. And then he probably started to face fuck her as she's blowing, like get more aggressive with the face fucking as she's blowing him. That's what I think actually happened, just from reading into this situation. Because she's with a hot guy, hot guy. She's with a high status guy. She wants his time. She wants his attention. He's about to withdraw it. She doesn't want to give him sex. So what's the next best thing? She sucks him. I think that's what happened. Anyway, where was I up to on my notes? She goes from blah, blah. Sounds like... Oh, yeah, and here's the really important part. Another really important part. So she makes a really important... She makes sure she takes her time to tell us in her video that he only lasted 30, 20 seconds at most while he was face fucking her and came in her mouth. The fact that she's hammering home a shaming tactic, the fact that she's like, it's so like obvious there that she's just trying to shame him, that tells me that she's trying to get back at him for blowing her off. That is my conclusion about this whole thing. Because she also shows text message exchanges here. She shows the text message exchange, and you can see after this incident, she's tried to message him a few times over a few different days, and he didn't reply to her at all. He ghosted her. This is why I think she has come out with these allegations like a year later, because he's obviously been in the news, and she's like, "This motherfucker never texted me back. I'm going to get back at him." Because you look at the way she, like, sexual assault survivors don't try to like sexually shame their attackers. Like I said, they're afraid of their attackers, and they want them behind bars. They don't create, like, where's the police report? I think someone said this like earlier on in the chat. this is a, sexual assault allegation, the first thing you want to do is go to the fucking cops. And for any women watching, if something like this happens to you, go to the police. The first thing you should do is go to the police immediately. I know women can feel sort of, can feel shame about this sort of stuff. If they're assaulted, it's a really confusing situation. It's a traumatizing situation, no doubt. But find a friend you trust and get them to take you to the cops. That should be your first course of action. Collect DNA while the incident is fresh in your mind. Deliver a statement. That should be the first thing you do in this situation, no matter what. But again, the fact that she's using these shaming tactics is just a massive red flag for me. And it's like, she's just trying to publicly shit on this guy's reputation. That's my immediate interpretation of these events. And the other thing that he did, I mentioned this earlier, he made a big deal of, he sort of insulted her for her phone. So apparently she has like at the time, she had like a smaller, like older phone. She didn't keep up with the Joneses and update it. And apparently, she went on like a good 3, 4, 5 minute rant in a 20-minute video just about her fucking phone. Because everyone else at the party had insulted her about her phone, teased her about her phone, basically. So obviously she's self-conscious about it because she fucking brings it up a bunch in this video. But he'd also done it as well. And again, if you're sexually assaulted, why the fuck do you give a shit about your phone? That's the least of your worries. If you were violated, why the hell would you care if someone's insulting you? But you're making a bigger deal about the fact that they insulted the size of your phone. This doesn't add up. This is a big red flag. And again, I think this is just her. That's her chinks in her armor coming out. This guy, blew me off, and he insulted me. Fuck him. I'm going to try and ruin his reputation. And then the other thing that I need to point out here is that she didn't take an Uber home after all this. She stayed there at the house. And again, this lends itself to my conclusion that she's jaded that he blew her off, because she's in his house. She just sucked him off. And then she stayed around the house hoping to get more time and attention from him. And nothing. A sexual assault survivor is going to... she said she couldn't drive there, or whatever. Or she couldn't drive home. It's 2021. You can get a fucking Uber. She has an iPhone. She can get a fucking Uber home. You're telling me they don't have Ubers in Calabasas? I know that's a lie. There are things that don't make sense here. So she stayed there, obviously. And then she tried texting him for a few days and he didn't respond. He blew her off, and I reckon she's very pissed off about that. And then after the fact, someone said in the chat earlier on, after the fact, she's, over the course of last year, she's backwards rationalized that this was in fact sexual assault. And she wants an apology. She doesn't want sexual assault charges to be put on the guy. She wants an apology. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Probably the reason she's not putting sexual assault charges is that there's probably a dozen witnesses at this house as to the nature of these events. Because it's a big house and he had a bunch of people there. So the lesson that I want you guys to take away from this is you need to be pretty firm with your boundaries. The comply or goodbye kind of. If you're in his situation, where because look, in his situation, girls are going to try and use him for his status. They're going to try and use him for his attention, for his money, for his connections, his resources. They're going to try and use him because he's high status. So he has to really put his foot down and be comply or goodbye. And the goodbye isn't just get out of my room. The goodbye should be get out of the fucking mansion. With you guys, you don't the average Joe doesn't really have to worry about that as much, because you don't have as much to be taken advantage of, I guess. So you're still going to have to play at some point. You're still going to have to play the 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of game with sexual escalation with a lot of women, an escalation ladder as we call it. So you have to be aware of that. And most people are not going to get this kind of allegation unless they're have some degree of status, or in this circumstance, unless you've blown the girl off. If you've, say done like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, she's resisted at some point along the physical escalation ladder, you said, okay, fine, and you've taken it back, and then you've tried again a bit later to escalate things forward, and it's gone okay, and you've had sex. Compliance, consent, that's physical consent. That's like non-verbal consent, right? If you've ended up having sex with a girl, and then but in this kind of a way, where it's not super enthusiastic verbal consent from her, but you've had to do the escalating and make things progress a bit smoother. If you then immediately blow her off, and she's trying to get your attention, this kind of thing could potentially happen. Where what's the saying? Hell hath no fury like the wrath of a woman scorned, something like that. Now, this doesn't mean you have to fucking marry the girl, but just be aware of just be aware of how she might backwards rationalize your interaction if you did blow her off and leave her jaded. That's important to understand. Important to consider. Now, I might go into I'll go into the couple of circumstances where I was accused of sexual assault falsely. And you guys can, again, learn from my experiences and stuff. Okay, his Thor's... my theory. Thor says she was willing, maybe on a period, give him a BJ. He ghosted. She's mad. Doesn't return his text. Yeah, maybe she was on a period. That's possible. Yeah, good thinking, Thor. That's possible. Yeah, maybe. But the whole time she's trying to play this fucking, like, I'm so innocent, I've only had sex with like a couple of guys angle. Look, mate, she's like a 19, 20-year-old pretty girl in fucking Calabasas, Los Angeles. That bitch has a fucking body count of like at least a dozen. At least. There's no way. Sorry. We're in 2021. Same shit ain't happening. Yeah, and is a TikTok personality. I mean, come on. Like, her whole business model is based around attention. You're telling me she's not getting dicked? Anyway. I'm just seeing if there's any questions here. Yes. It was too cheap to get an Uber. Oh yeah, there's apparently was like he has this really interesting thing on his door, where to get into the mansion you have to the doorbell has an NDA built into it, so it takes your photo and then you have to sign an NDA to even enter the house, which is very clever. I'm not gonna lie, it's a very, very clever thing. But I don't think that protects you against sexually assaulting people. So I don't think that's kind of relevant. It's probably more to do with talking about what he films for his YouTube channel or his business ventures or whatever, I guess. Yeah. See if there's any other plausible liability. Yeah, exactly. Shaming, tactic language. She's trying to burn him because she's just mad at him. Yeah. Thank you, Thomas. Yes, it is an interesting analysis. Thank you very much, Thomas. Yeah, basically. So that's my break. That's my analysis of this whole situation and kind of how it went down. Now, let me give you my the couple of examples from my life of when this happened. And let's see, what was the first one? Yeah, so the first one was I was at a party. I was actually at a sex worker party, an adult industry party. So there's a bunch of sex workers, a bunch of porn stars, escorts, cam girls, whatever. We'd been at this event, and that's right, yeah, it was like an award ceremony, and there was a couple of girls who were at the party who I think they worked for a sex shop or something. They weren't porn stars. They were industry adjacent, right? But they were at the award show, and they were drinking with everybody and stuff. And then one of my buddies was like, hey, let's all go back to my place for the after party. And so these girls came with us. A bunch of people went to this guy's house for the after party. We got to the party. I started chatting to one of these girls. So there was the pretty one and then her fat friend. I'm chatting to the pretty one. And things are going good. We start making out pretty hot and heavy. We're both tipsy at this point. We're making out pretty hot and heavy. And that's right. We're making out in the middle of like the main room where everyone is, in the party room. Everyone's like chilling and chatting, music's playing, whatever. So what happened was I've grabbed her butt as I'm making out with her, right? And I've squeezed, as I'm squeezing her butt, she's wearing this like a really, really thin pencil skirt, you know? And as I'm squeezing her butt, the skirt is basically coming up. So it's exposing like the bottom of her butt cheeks. So, and she's noticed this and she's kind of got a little bit embarrassed. And I'm like, oh shit, my bad. So what I've done is I've grabbed the side of the dress to pull it down to cover her up again. Now, unfortunately, she was wearing a G-string and it was sitting at the exact same point on her hips as I've grabbed. So as I've pulled down to pull her dress down, covering her ass again, I've accidentally pulled her panties down. So her panties are now underneath her dress, like just poking out the bottom. And as I've done it, I've gone, oh shit, sorry, me and her have had a chuckle, had a laugh, and she's pulled them back up again. It's like, oh Jesus, this is so embarrassing. It's even more embarrassing. So me and her are having this stupid, funny thing, this accident that's just happened. Right? Her fat friend across the room has seen something completely different. Her fat friend has just seen her friend break off the kiss with me and then me pull her panties down. That's what her friend has seen from across the room, out of context, right? So her friend has come storming over and has been like, get your hands off my friend, don't you touch her, blah, blah. I'm telling her, like, look, calm down, this is not what you think it is. The pretty girl is still like embarrassed. Well, she's still embarrassed from what happened before, and now she's embarrassed her fat friends come over to fucking, get all up on my grill. And her friend, out of the blue, bam, just slapped me. Now, I'm not really a violent guy. I'm a patient guy. And so I've turned to him like, look, don't fucking hit me. This is what's happened. It was an accident between the two of us. This is not what you think it is. And again, bang, she cracked me across the face. Like, typical, like, drunk, fucking feminist, entitled idiot. And so she hit me twice. Like, most people would have fucking cracked her back at this point. But again, I'm a patient guy. And she's not hitting that hard for me, but she doesn't know how to throw a punch. So anyway, she's cracked me in the face twice. And I've said, look, that was your last warning. Don't touch me again. And then sure enough, she hits me again. So I just shove her. I don't punch her. I don't slap her. I just get her the fuck away from me so she can't slap me again. So I'm like, get back, foul beast. As I've shoved her, because she's drunk, she's gone tumbling into a fucking like bookcase and like knocked over some stuff. And obviously the whole party is just drawing the attention of the whole party. But of course, all the party sees now, so the same way that what she saw from across the room was us disengaging and kissing and then me pulling panties down. Again, wrong interpretation of the events. What everyone else in the party has now seen is me no one has seen her slapping me in the fucking face. All they've seen is me shove a woman into a bookcase. So then I yelled at her like look, you get it wasn't even my party, it wasn't even my house, but I was like, you get the fuck out of here. I didn't give a shit at this point in front of everyone. So I basically yelled at her to get the fuck out of the party. She got the fuck out of the party. Her friend, super, super embarrassed. Then I decided to leave the party as well, and I went home with a couple of with a girl who's a friend of mine, who's also a sex worker, who'd seen the whole thing. And the interesting thing was, so these events happen, and then there is a secret Facebook group in Australia for sex workers, where all the escorts, all the female escorts, only the female escorts, male escorts aren't allowed in there. And there's a lot of real man-hating feminists in that group too. So all the female escorts are in this secret Facebook group where they share any information about bad clients. So if they have a dangerous client, if they have a guy who's maybe a pain in the ass, he's tight, he's trying to get services without paying for them, anything like this, or if he's a red flag client or a time waster, they post his number in this forum so all the girls can add him to their blacklists. So it's a really, really great idea. However, like a week later, this somebody else's interpretation of this whole event popped up in these forums, which I'm not in, but my friend is in. So she was able to tell me what the hell was going on. She was sending me screenshots of what was being said about me behind my back in these forums. And lo and behold, they're saying, oh, he sexually assaulted one woman, and then he physically assaulted another woman. And then, but there was the funny thing was there was a few, at least like 3 women who were in that forum who were actually in the party themselves. So, but never expect a woman to stick her neck out for you, because they certainly didn't do that. Even though they knew this other bitch was lying about me, they didn't dare put their own reputation on the line to defend me when I couldn't defend myself in that particular environment. So that's a very interesting scenario from there. So you can't control how other people are going to interpret things out of context. And that whole scenario is a perfect example of 2 different situations being interpreted out of context. So that was the first time that I got accused of sexual assault. Jake Generio, good to see you in the chat, my friend. Jake, if you haven't seen Jake's channel, go check out Jake's channel. Me and him did an interview last week. He's a Brazilian-based pickup artist. Very good guy. Very good man. We had a fucking fantastic chat last week. Jake says, "You're a better man than me. I would have shoved her earlier. Thanks again for the great interview on my channel. Keep fighting the good fight." I'll try not to fight women in the process if I can avoid it, Jake. So, I like this. MLD used to be my favorite misogynistic chauvinist bastard. Now you are. You're welcome, Danny. Thank you. Thank you very much. But we're the mama bear. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that was the first time I got accused of sexual assault. The second time was even more bizarre. So, oh yeah, and what was even more interesting was that the girl the one that was slapping me and shit, got my phone number off of one of my other friends at the party and was texting me the next day apologizing after I had kicked. So what happened was I kicked her. I kicked both of them out of the party, oddly enough. Like the girl I was making out with and her fat friend. I was like, you get the fuck out. Well, I was basically telling the fat friend to get out, but obviously the one I was making out with was going to go with her friend. So basically yelled at her in front of the whole party, get the fuck out. While she's out there, the friend I was making out with has explained to her what the fuck had happened. And so she's gone, oh my God, I just cock blocked you for no reason. And then the next day was like apologizing on text message to me. So even the girl who I fucking assaulted was apologizing to me. Goes to show. Now, the second incidence of false sexual assault allegation that happened to me was I shot content with, and I'm gonna out this bitch because she's fucking she's all over Twitter saying I sexually assaulted her. Alexa Vice, you can go look her up. She's an English porn star. Me and Alexa got along great for a long period of time. And we shot content together this one time in her apartment in London. She was very, very much enamored with me at that point. And, you know, she was saying things like, oh my God, you're one of the best performers I've ever worked with, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, as what I normally do with all the content that I shoot, I take a chunk of it. So say it's like a 20-minute scene. I'll take like 5 minutes of that 20-minute scene. The I try to take all the PG stuff, like all the teasing, the bit with the clothes on, the dialogue, or whatever it is, and maybe just some of the blowjob, and I put that for free as a teaser on sites like Pornhub and Xvideos, right, to try and drive more traffic to the full clip, which they have to pay for. It's the same strategy that every fucking company under the sun, every porn company under the sun uses, the exact same strategy. So I did that with her, and then maybe 6 to 12 months after we'd shot the content, she saw that teaser and got pissed, saying, "Oh, you've given away our entire scene for free." Now, full disclosure, Alexa Weiss is fucking like bonkers. Like, she's like bipolar to the max, right? Not a sane person by any means. So I can bring up like endless fucking Instagram messages, but basically it's just her constantly saying like, "Oh, you're giving away stuff for free," and me being like, "Look, bitch, no, I'm not. Here's the situation. Look, you can cut your own teasers, trailers, doing whatever you like. I'm not taking my shit down. A content swap is a content swap, and anyone who actually it works in my industry will tell you this. If it's a content share, both people can do whatever the fuck they want with the content. Ta-da. And I guarantee she's made more money off the content than I have anyway, because she's a woman, and women make more money in this industry than dudes do." So that happened. And then for the next like year and a half, every 6 months, I got a message in my fucking Instagram DMs, just like, one of those messages that's like a like a 3 scroller of just like her ranting about, stealing stuff and putting on these for free and stuff. Again, and look, I would have probably taken it down if she hadn't been such a cunt in her initial message. If she hadn't been so goddamn like self-entitled and been like, "You must do this thing for me. You must do all this extra work because I say so." If she hadn't come up with that attitude, I actually probably would have taken it down. She hadn't been such a cunt. But she was a cunt, so fuck her. I'm not going to take it down. I don't have to take it down. It's a content share. We both own the content. Anyway, this story over the course of the last 2 year and a half has gone from, "Hey, please, can you you must take this down. You're stealing content," to "You sexually assaulted me." Over the course of the last year and a half, that narrative has changed, and so I think we blocked each other on fucking Twitter a long time ago. But she basically, apparently, the last few months, she went on Twitter saying I sexually assaulted her and stuff like that. So again, be wary of sexual encounters with batshit crazy women, is my piece of advice in this particular context, gentlemen. So, and Lord knows what else she's fucking saying. Yeah, Rage Guy, that's the one. Alexa Weiss, that's the crackhead. I think it's spelled like that, Rubik, here with 3 X's. So. Exactly, Sean. She's literally covered in red flags from head to toe. She's a heavily tattooed woman. She's a walking red flag. But that's an example of that's 2 examples of false sexual assault allegations, and how easy it is these days for women to just conjure this shit up out of nowhere and have everyone else believe it. This whole believe all women narrative that's going on right now is very fucking dangerous, because case in point, 2 case in points from me, 1 case in point from Jake Paul. Oh, there was one more example that I did just popped into my head then. Oh, I forgot. I've already forgotten it. Balls. There was another example I was going to give. Anyway, I forget. But basically, yeah, that's Rage Guy. Our performer's supposed to make statements or camera give consent before filming. See, that's the thing. When that wasn't even really standard practice until this last year, because make sure my battery's not going to die. That wasn't even standard practice until until 2020, because in 2020, during the COVID lockdowns in Los Angeles, about half a dozen sexual assault allegations came out. About half a dozen dudes in the industry got massive sexual assault allegations, some big names too. And so then all the studios kind of panicked, and they had time because they weren't filming. They had time to sort of reassess, and then basically a lot of the studios started doing consent interviews before they started filming content. Previously, the only company I'd really worked for that did that was kink.com, because kink.com does very, very extreme stuff. So you would sit down in front of the camera before filming the sex scene, and the girl would be like, okay, here are my yeses, here are my nos. Like, you can do this stuff to me, you can't do this stuff to me. And that would be recorded before we went into the sex scene for kink. Now it's becoming real standard practice for most companies to do that before we film, because of all these sexual assault allegations that came out. And but we were shooting content. This was 2.5 years ago now, I think. I can't the exact time. It was back when I was in England. But when you're shooting content, you don't do that. You don't, because you're having fun. It's just two people like hooking up and then you're putting a camera up and filming it. So we don't really do it for the most part. Content shares like that between two talents aren't really as formalized. However, now I am starting to do that as like part of my practice, is like, because there's a sort of a script that you can follow, which is like, please state, you film them like with their IDs. You say, please state your legal name. Are you here of your own free will? Did I make you do anything you didn't like? You said this is what you would do after the sex scene. You'd be like, did I make you do anything that you didn't want to do? Were you forced to be here? Everything you did of your own free will. Would you work with me again? That's the other big question you add in there, because this is the exact script that companies like Brazzers use. And so that's like your consent, your post-sex consent interview, and you can do something before sex as well. So, basically for dudes who are in my industry, you kind of cover your ass with this kind of stuff if you want to avoid such situations. Yes. More red flags than a Chinese Communist parade, exactly. I just looked the chick up. I'm not gonna lie. I find that kind of crazy look hot. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a complete degenerate. So, my bad. Made a mistake there. Oh, that was the story I was going to tell you. That was the last story I was going to tell you guys before we wrap up here. So there was another girl even before that I was dating, another porn chick I was dating, and dating very, very briefly. Like, I was crashing at her house for a few days, and she went to this award ceremony, and I didn't want to go to this award ceremony. I wasn't on any of the awards or anything. I didn't give a shit. So I decided I was like, I'm going to go shoot content with this other girl. And so I grabbed all my shit, like my bag, my suitcase, whatever, and I took it with me as I left, right? And then she went to that award ceremony that night. I woke up the next morning to a bunch of Twitter notifications of people calling me a piece of shit. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? And then I checked my phone, and this girl whose house I had been staying at had come home from her award ceremony, found that my bags weren't there, and accused me of breaking into her house to get my bags, even though I had them in my hands when I said goodbye to her the previous day and left with all my bags in my hand. She then accused me of breaking into her house and getting my shit, but basically breaking into the house. And then she went and posted this on Twitter to all of her, couple of 100,000 fans, saying, Sterling Cooper broke into my house and blah, 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 blah. And then I wake up to all these fucking Twitter DMs of people being like, what are you, a piece of shit, breaking into women's homes now? What's wrong with you? Blah, blah. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Obviously, I hit her up. I'm like, look, spastic. Like, I had the bags in my hand when I left, you moron. So she deleted the tweet, blah, blah. But nobody held her accountable. Zero ramifications. So this I'll close on this point. So that girl, and then Alexa Vice, and then the other girl who accused me of, assaulting her friend or whatever. Zero ramifications for them in their life. No, not held accountable for their lies, not held accountable for trying to tarnish my reputation. But I have to live with the tarnished reputation from people who don't know the full story, from people who just believe all women, from people who just believe their side of the story. So, very, very important thing to note there is that women do lie about this stuff because there's no reason, there's no ramifications for them lying. There's zero consequence for them lying. So, and the problem with that is that the girls who are actually telling the truth, their story gets watered down. Their genuine cases of sexual assault get thrown into the mix with all these idiots who are fucking lying for attention and are lying just to get back at a guy. That is the real. Like, I can handle it. Like, what do you do? It hasn't really damaged my life that much. I've moved on. I've lived. I've gotten over it. But every time a woman makes a false sexual assault allegation like that, the women who are actually getting sexually assaulted are the ones that are really fucking getting hurt by all this stuff. Because it makes this whole believe all women thing is actually making dudes believe less women. So there we go. Yeah. That is, basically, well summed up here. Playboy, guilty until proven unguilty is social media logic of 2021. That's pretty much spot on, mate. Pretty much spot on. And I like this, Abraham Lincoln. Pretty soon the industry will have to shoot scenes where the women are required to yell, I consent, mid-scene. Yeah, it's starting to head that way. So, there we go. That's it for today, guys. Smash that like button. If you want to watch her full thing, the link's in the description down below. But I basically summarized all the important points in it. Check out my products. They're also in the links down below. If you haven't already, get my free ebook, the 5 subtle mistakes men make in the bedroom and how to fix them. That is in the link down below. Or you can get any of my new products. My new Ultimate Guide to Performance Anxiety is out. That is down there below. And my new book, How to Seal the Deal, a tactical guide to getting laid on the first date, is also in the description down below. As always, thanks for the support. And I will see you guys next time. Hoorah.